So have exhibitors welcomed the decision?
We, without wishing to sort of go into the sort of prepared sort of blurb on this, we've been in pretty regular contact all the way through with our exhibitors, and we're trying to give them as much certainty as we can. And obviously we live in a very, very uncertain world. And so that's been very difficult. We've waited deliberately. We set ourselves an internal deadline of the end of July, which we felt 6 months we thought was appropriate for all parties. It takes us at least that to run the event, if you like. But exhibitors start planning their booths and doing all that sort of thing. So they've been waiting to hear from us for some sort of certainty. The main kind of priority all the way through this has been safety, and I'm really sort of keen that we don't sound hypocritical. We've gone big on greenkeeper safety through this whole crisis. From the very first, before it even really kind of kicked off, we were there quite loud and clear. And we don't believe right now that we can guarantee safety of our members, our staff, and then by extension, the exhibitors, actually for that matter, the media. I'm not comfortable saying to you that it's the right thing to do to come to an event and put yourself in potential harm's way. And the exhibitors that we've spoken to, we haven't spoken to them all by any means, have welcomed some certainty, and also the fact that they are not going to be put into a difficult position themselves. One of the key comments that's come back from some of the exhibitors is that there aren't going to be any perfect answers. We're not in a perfect world anymore. And so really what they want is, what's the best that can be done? And we think we're finding our way to the best solution. So we're going to cancel the event as a physical in-person event. We are going to continue with the education conference, but we'll expand that. So instead of doing that and cramming it into 4 days in Harrogate, we'll probably even take a couple of weeks to spread the event out. We're hoping to go bigger than ever. We feel that by not having to bring the presenters all the way to Harrogate, we can get people from all over the world. We can aim really high. Sammy Strutt, my colleague, is cracking away, but slightly daunted by just how much she could do. Yeah. So we're really kind of quite excited about that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a different event in the summer. So we're going to put together the current plan is a 2-day event outdoors at an outdoor venue where we can have our client base, the trade, engaging with our audience. It isn't BTME. We're not expecting great big structures and whatever. We want it to be not low key. I mean, some of the guys will want to sort of show their brand in the appropriate way, but we feel that next summer we can do something with confidence where we get our two audiences together, the trade and the greenkeepers and groundsmen. So we haven't finalised. We've got 3 venues that we're currently working with to identify the right venue and date. And our plan is by the end of this month to have a plan in place to announce to the rest of the industry about what our summer working title right now. It won't be this, but it's kind of the Festival of Turf. We've got that kind of sort of festival feel, being outdoors. Hopefully, the first time lots of people have come together, so that's a quite nice feeling that we're going to get back out into the real world next summer.
On the back of what you were saying then, if social distancing is still in place in June, given the show is outdoors, would that still be allowed to go ahead, do you think?
I think we're talking nearly a year away. So, but what I would say is that, it will be our position that we don't want to put our members and clients in danger. So if we feel that the event is going to bring any danger to those people, we wouldn't be doing it. And that really is why, deep down, the BTME Harrogate event, I mean, it just, the way that BTME is, I mean, you've been for a number of years now, people are together. It's a people together event. And I've seen how events are meant to be running in this COVID world. I was actually at a venue yesterday and they were preparing for an event on October the 3rd and it just feels wrong.
Yeah.
It's not an event. It's people staying distant. How do you engage with people when you've got to stick 2 meters?
And that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, the fact that the social scene is so vibrant as well in Harrogate, and obviously people are coming together on an evening, that's part of the show, isn't it?
Yeah. And I saw some people at the weekend that I haven't seen for a while, and every instinct is to walk up and shake hands, and we're doing this kind of weird standing back and then elbow rubbing, and I just can't really imagine thousands of people descending on Harrogate, and then walking around in these big sort of, bubbles in their mind and staying away. It just doesn't feel right. And I think that if we were to put the event on, or even say that we feel that the right thing to do is to run an event, I just think we're asking people to do something that I wouldn't be comfortable asking my staff to do. I wouldn't be comfortable asking you to come along and be part of it. So as an aside, I think you're aware that the conference centre is still a Nightingale hospital. They've announced, funny enough, last night, they've extended the contract for 2 weeks, which only takes them to next week. But what behind the scenes, they're in massive negotiation, because the other Nightingale hospitals can run, part of their site as a hospital and part of their site as an event centre. Harrogate can't. We don't know when that'll come out of hospital, but if the government are saying that we need hospitals through till March, then I just can't see BTME being right in that time.
No. But then in that sense, would moving the show outside of Harrogate be an option?
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at 3 different venues, and we're going to be outdoors. There'll be an indoor element to it. There'll be indoors for registration, maybe some of the stands, but the event will predominantly be outdoors. But yeah, all the venues we've actually had a look at quite a number this last sort of 6 weeks. We've been investigating all sorts of things and trying to work out. No, all over the country. Well, I'd say all over England so far. We haven't looked in Scotland or beyond. We've looked at about 8 different venues, and we've narrowed it down to 3 that can do dates that work for us, and we think have got the facilities. And we're hopeful that by the end of this month we'll have a contract in place and a plan to go out to the market. So.
Right. Do you feel that introducing an outdoor element, people will want to continue that in the future, or will it be the plan that you return to the Harrogate Centre for January 2022?
It's certainly the plan that we return in January 22. We feel strongly, and I think our evidence suggests that the combination of Harrogate, January, that week, education, exhibition, everything together works really well, and we want to continue with that. And that is certainly plan A. This new event for next summer is definitely plan B. 1 or 2 people have already said to me, well, if it's great, we might end up doing both, which gives me a bit of a panic, because we work blooming hard putting one event on a year. If we find, it's interesting, because what we normally have said over the years, if we said to the trade, kind of, the summer's your time. If you want to run demo days and all this sort of stuff, that's absolutely fine. If the guys come to us and say that really worked and we like the idea, we'd like to do something like this again, we'd probably look at it, and we might even find that could go on the road. That might be something that you move around the country to track different audiences. But realistically, we're looking at very much a crisis plan for 2021, which involves changing the way we do things, and then we'd like to go back to something like normal, whatever that's going to be in 2022.
Do you feel that June does pose sort of an in-season problem for many visitors, in terms of they're more in the thick of things? And
yeah, it won't be perfect, and I think I said in an earlier answer, one of the points that's come across is there won't be a perfect solution. We're just going to find the best one we can. We very much see this event as an in and out. People would be kind of one night, 2 days. In fact, and day visits will be perfectly reasonable for those within a decent time. We're not expecting people to come for 4, 5, 6 days like they do to BTME normally. I think people can get away for a day if they want to. And what we found in discussion with our exhibitors is that the spring for them, so sort of Easter time and around that, is very much they're out on the road. They're absolutely smashing it out on the road. They're demoing, they're in and selling, and then it does go a little quieter in the summer for the same reason you're saying. Some of our members get quite busy on their sites. We think there's an opportunity to take advantage of that little lull.
Yeah. Okay. Would it be sort of an outdoor show? Would it be sort of one stand fits all, or would it be an opportunity for different sort of areas and things?
Yeah, we'd like it to. One of the things that I like about outdoor shows is that kind of sea of colour. The idea is we can do this a lot more cost effectively than BTME is. I'm not expecting them to be spending what they spend for BTME. In fact, I want them to spend probably less than half of that in total, because it'll be a different event.
Yeah.
So some guys might take the opportunity to have a larger space because they can, because they've got machinery that they'd like to show and that kind of thing. I'm hoping that by being outdoors, we can take advantage of that in terms of, some things moving, some things demoing, that sort of stuff would be nice. Mm-hmm. But the idea is that kind of festival, you can kind of see my age where I'm thinking festival rather than thinking agricultural show, but that kind of feeling of being out in hopefully sunshine, and probably the first time our audience, both audiences, the trade and the things, have actually been together. So I'm just hoping it's, really kind of social, great networking. I'm picturing guys stood around machines and just chatting away about that sort of thing in a really kind of positive way.
Absolutely. Would there still be a seminar program involved?
Yeah, we think we would do a small amount of things, 3 or 4 key things a day, try and get, really interesting stuff, panel discussions, that sort of stuff. But it would be, and I say 2, 3, 4 a day, just to have some things happening during the day. We wouldn't be looking to put, conferences on, workshops on, that kind of stuff. The key would be getting guys into the trade spaces.
Yeah, sure. And you mentioned Continue to Learn, obviously will still go ahead in January. Can you just sort of expand on that a bit more in terms of, do you think it will still be as popular virtually?
Well, we certainly hope so. I mean, our evidence, certainly back in the early part of lockdown, we sort of flipped to doing webinar type events and got fantastic numbers. And the numbers we had, particularly watching later. So we've been putting them on at 3 and 4 o'clock, which works for some, not for all. But we've been literally getting hundreds of people watching these webinars over time. We normally get about 1,000 delegates come through the Continue to Learn program. We have about 5,000 visitors, and 1 in 5 take advantage of education. We would be hopeful that we'd see that grow. And actually our plan, and I was on a conference call last night with my opposite numbers in Canada and Australia and America, and there is a hope that we would carry on doing the events virtually as well as physically in 22 and beyond, because the evidence seems to suggest that you actually grow your audience. The worry was that by going virtual, people stopped coming. But actually what they do is they sample it for the first time virtually and then think, I want to be part of that next year, and come and do it that way. So we'd like to think we get a lot of people. The challenge is finding the right platforms, and also making sure the content works online, because a 6-hour workshop, online would be somewhere near torture. So we'll be obviously spreading those things over multiple days and trying to make sure people have that opportunity to go and make their cup of tea and stretch their legs and find network opportunities in it. But I mean, that world is moving so fast. You'll have seen it, the amount of stuff that my team have been sat on webinars for the last 3 months looking at how to make best use of virtual technology. So we're pretty confident it'll work well, and we're going to have a world famous lineup of speakers, because they can come from anywhere, from their laboratories or their golf courses. We can just beam them in. So we think we can aim pretty high.
Yeah, brilliant. In terms of sort of, maybe, for instance, if you stayed at the Harrogate Showground, are you getting the councils involved in terms of that? Are they on board in terms of traffic and congestion and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, what the event industry is obviously in chaos, and as I said earlier, I was at a venue yesterday, and they've got a event planning, and I mean, they're really excited because they haven't seen anybody for 5 months, and this is still October. There's still 2 months to go, and they're getting all sort of giddy about it. But what they've realised, any venue, any part of the country where a venue is part of it, has now recognised what they were missing. In terms of Harrogate itself, the convention centre has been this hospital now since back in April. And so they haven't had an event of any kind. And the town is suffering. The town is really suffering. We just through social media, we see quite a lot of stuff that comes up, and that I'm certain we're going to lose restaurants and bars and probably guest houses and things in Harrogate because of this massive interruption to business. So I think it's reasonable to assume that whichever venue we take, whoever that area will be really keen to have us. If we're bringing some economic value, that we'll get support in everything we need, whether that's shuttle buses, parking, promotion, drinks, whatever it may be, seems to be pretty much on the cards. The venues we've spoken to are very, very keen.
Okay. Assuming sort of Soul Tax would return in sort of November next year, do you think there's a little bit of sort of show overkill in that sense, or?
The GMA have announced that they plan to go March. So they are aiming for March 21 and then March 22. Whether that means that move becomes permanent, I don't know. But they've obviously decided that next year not to do 2 shows in a year, which I can fully understand. So they shouldn't be overkill next year. However, I mean, every show's got to sort of stand and fall on its merits, I guess. I mean, we are going to be in a different world. I mean, one of the reasons that I think us cancelling BTME will be welcomed by some of our exhibitors is because they're having a shocking year. I mean, the marketing budget's going to be under pressure. You know this at Pitchcare. You're going to feel this. We're going to feel it too. So we're looking to try and make sure we offer them a more inexpensive option. And I think it will reignite conversations about how many events there are and which ones are of value. But I have to say, I've always welcomed that conversation, because if our event isn't of value, we shouldn't be doing it. So, we feel confident we've got an offering that works for both sides of the equation, and we hope to keep adapting to match that. And I have to say, I've always said this, but I take my hats off to Jeff and the guys at GMA. They've turned Soltex at the NEC into a vibrant event. They've done well, and so I have every reason to believe it will carry on being so.
Okay. What's been the main question directed to BIGGA during the pandemic in general?
It's been a really interesting ride. The first few weeks, and that does seem a long time ago now, doesn't it? There was so much fear and uncertainty that we got things that we never dreamt we'd have. We were literally holding people by the hand, literally, not metaphorically holding by the hand, and talking to employers about whether they should be in work and all this kind of stuff. What then came through? We had this incredible opportunity, really, when the only thing going on was greenkeeping. For the first time ever, we were getting calls from like the proper golf media saying there's nothing to talk about. What the hell's happening on? Tell me about aeration or whatever else. I did podcasts with Golf Monthly and this sort of stuff because they have nothing else to talk about. Yeah. And so I think the question that I've asked myself, and we've been asked by our board and others, is how do we capitalise on this? How do we actually look at the opportunity that we've had? Because golf clubs right now are simply about golf. They're about preparing the golf course and getting played. Mm-hmm. All thought of, improving locker rooms and the snooker table have just gone out the window. We can't pretend it's not going to be tough for a couple of years. We're going to see lower numbers of greenkeepers. We know that. We're seeing the redundancies already. The furlough scheme is ticking over now. So a lot of clubs will want to have offloaded any staff by the end of the furlough scheme for obvious reasons. So I think we've got a rocky year or two. But I think we've got an opportunity. And what's been really interesting is that this last 4 or 5 months, I've had more conversations with the powers that be in golf than we'd probably ever had before that. And they're actually keen that we're part of that conversation now. And I think there's an opportunity for us to be at the top table far more often. And I think the same must be true as well for the other guys in turf care. I think it's been true across other sports. I know the GMA have had similar opportunities. So I think we're going to have a year or so, if not more, of quite tough times with our members, losing jobs and losing budget and whatever, but then come out of it in a stronger place because greenkeeping is more appreciated. Having said which, I'm already seeing the photos on social media of badly repaired pitch marks and divots on greens and things. So that, there's an element of same old, same old.
How close are you to making a decision on the venue and the dates?
I would think we'll have a venue choice by the end of next week, and I would think we'll be promoting that by the end of the month, start of September. I think once we've got the venue, we're then going to create the map and the pricing and all that kind of stuff. So that'll take us 2 to 3 weeks. But I would think we'll have a venue decision this week or early next, and then hopefully by the end of the month we'll be able to go out to everybody and say, right, this is the plan. Which puts under a bit of pressure to give it a name by then as well, because I'm not sure Festival of Turf is going to kind of really float. But it's just kind of the thing in my head. I've got this kind of, part BTME, part Glastonbury. It doesn't really mix, but I'll get it there in the end.
No, I quite like it, actually. I think it could work.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
No, I think you're doing a grand job. I think, in terms of trying to adapt, like you say, it's going to be an interesting time.